Have you ever wondered why some words arrive too late, while others arrive at exactly the moment your heart is finally ready to hear them? Imagine receiving a message from the person you love, not a message filled with perfect promises or dramatic declarations, but one that carries honesty, vulnerability, and the kind of truth that changes everything. A message that begins with a simple request. Please, before you decide what comes next, listen to me. I don't want to lose you. Those words are powerful because they reflect something many of us have experienced. We all reach moments when silence grows heavier than conversation, when misunderstandings become walls, and when pride quietly steals the chance to say what truly matters. So wherever you are today, take a deep breath and stay with this story until the end. It isn't about predicting your future or claiming to know your relationship. It's about exploring the emotions, fears, hopes, and choices that can exist between two people who still care even when they don't know how to say it. Because sometimes the message we need to hear isn't magical. Sometimes it's simply honest. The story begins on an ordinary evening. Your phone is silent. The room is quiet. Nothing seems different from any other day, yet something inside you feels unsettled. Not because you've received bad news, but because your heart keeps returning to someone you thought you understood completely. Perhaps you've shared unforgettable memories together. Perhaps you've drifted apart. Or perhaps you're standing in that uncertain space where nobody knows exactly what the relationship has become. Now imagine that person sitting alone somewhere. No audience. No dramatic music. No perfect speech prepared in advance. Just a person thinking about everything that was left unsaid. They replay conversations in their mind. They remember the smile that once made difficult days feel lighter. They remember the arguments they wish had ended differently. They remember the moments when both of you wanted the same thing but neither of you knew how to express it. And finally, after carrying those thoughts for far too long, they decide they can no longer remain silent. Not because they have all the answers. Not because they expect immediate forgiveness. But because losing someone without speaking honestly feels heavier than risking rejection. If they could sit across from you today, perhaps this is how they would begin. I know life has changed. I know we've both made mistakes. I know there were moments when I didn't understand your heart the way I should have. I kept believing there would always be another chance to explain myself. Another day. Another conversation. Another tomorrow. Then I realized tomorrow is never guaranteed. Those words don't come from weakness. They come from courage. Because vulnerability asks us to lower the walls we've spent months or sometimes years building around ourselves. Think about how often people hide what they truly feel. Not because they don't care. Because they're afraid. Afraid that honesty will be ignored. Afraid that their feelings won't be returned. Afraid that opening their heart one more time will only bring more pain. Yet despite all of that fear, they choose to speak anyway. And perhaps the most meaningful part of their message isn't, "I don't want to lose you." Perhaps it's what comes next. I don't expect perfection from either of us. I don't expect us to erase every misunderstanding overnight. I simply hope we can remember why we mattered to each other in the first place. That sentence changes everything. Because real love isn't measured by the absence of conflict. It's measured by the willingness to understand each other even after disappointment. As the evening grows quieter, they continue speaking not to convince you, not to pressure you, but to reveal something they've carried for a long time. I spent so much time thinking about what you should have done that I forgot to ask what I could have done differently. I focused on being understood before trying to understand you. Looking back now, I see moments where I could have listened instead of reacting. I could have comforted instead of defending myself. I could have chosen kindness instead of proving I was right. Those reflections don't erase the past. But they create something new. They create the possibility of growth. And growth is where many relationships begin again. Not by pretending nothing happened, but by choosing to become better than the people you were yesterday. So if you've ever found yourself wondering whether honesty still has the power to heal, stay with this story. Because sometimes the words we fear saying the most become the very words that set two hearts free. There is something remarkable about quiet moments. Not the moments filled with dramatic speeches or grand gestures, but the ones where a person finally stops running from their own thoughts. Those moments often become the turning point in a relationship, not because everything suddenly becomes perfect, but because someone finally chooses honesty over fear. The person you love continues their message. I've spent so much time thinking about what I would say if I ever had another chance to talk to you. At first, I imagined the perfect words. I wanted every sentence to sound convincing, every explanation to make complete sense. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that perfection isn't what we needed. We needed truth. For a long moment, there is only silence. Not an uncomfortable silence. The kind that allows every word to settle. I used to believe love meant never making mistakes. Now I understand something different. Love is learning from those mistakes before they become the only thing we remember. How many relationships slowly fade, not because two people stop caring, but because they stop communicating. A small misunderstanding becomes distance. Distance becomes assumptions. Assumptions become walls. And after enough time passes, those walls seem impossible to climb. Yet every wall begins with one brick. And every wall can be taken apart one brick at a time. I remember the little things, the message continues. The conversations that lasted far longer than we planned. The moments when we laughed so hard that nothing else seemed important. The dreams we talked about as if they were already waiting for us. Those memories never left me. It's strange how the heart works. It doesn't always remember every date or every conversation. Instead, it remembers how someone made us feel. Safe. Understood. Accepted. Hopeful. Those feelings stay with us much longer than we expect. I know people change, the message says softly. And maybe we've both changed too. But change doesn't always mean growing apart. Sometimes it means becoming the kind of people who finally know how to love each other better. Think about that for a moment. Growth isn't the opposite of love. Growth is one of its greatest expressions. Because real love doesn't ask people to remain exactly the same forever. It invites them to become wiser, kinder, and more understanding with every passing season. I've stopped asking whether the past can be rewritten, the voice continues. It can't. But the future hasn't been written yet. That part is still waiting for the choices we make today. Those words carry a quiet strength. They don't erase yesterday. They simply remind us that tomorrow is still open. Life has an unexpected way of giving people opportunities they never thought they would have again. Sometimes those opportunities arrive as conversations. Sometimes they arrive as forgiveness. Sometimes they arrive simply as the courage to listen without interrupting. I don't need you to have every answer, the message says. I only hope that if we ever speak again, we speak with open hearts instead of old fears. That sentence lingers. Because every meaningful conversation begins long before the first word is spoken. It begins with a decision. A decision to understand before judging. To ask before assuming. To listen before responding. Perhaps that is the lesson hidden inside every lasting relationship. Not that two people always agree, but that they refuse to let misunderstanding become stronger than compassion. The message grows quieter now, almost as though every word carries careful thought. If you've ever questioned whether you mattered to me, I wish I had shown you more clearly. Feelings become meaningful only when they are expressed. Keeping them locked inside helped no one. There is wisdom in that admission. Many people wait for the perfect moment to speak from the heart. They don't realize that the perfect moment often passes while they're still waiting. What remains are unsent messages, unasked questions, unspoken gratitude, and unnecessary regret. Perhaps the greatest gift we can offer someone isn't certainty. It's sincerity. The courage to say what is true while there is still time to say it. The message ends this part with one final reflection. I don't know what tomorrow holds. I don't know which path either of us will choose. But I do know this. If kindness leads the conversation, understanding has a chance to follow. And sometimes, that's where healing begins. For a few moments, everything becomes quiet again. Not because the story is ending, but because the next chapter begins with a choice that only an open heart can make. The message doesn't end with a dramatic promise. Instead, it begins to reveal something far more meaningful. There comes a point in every relationship when we stop asking, who was right, and begin asking, what truly mattered. The person you love takes another quiet breath before continuing. If I could go back, I wouldn't try to relive every moment. I would simply be more present in the moments we already had. I spent too much time worrying about tomorrow and not enough time appreciating today. How often does that happen? We become so focused on what might happen next that we overlook the beauty already in front of us. We postpone important conversations. We delay apologies. We assume there will always be another opportunity. Then one day we realize that the ordinary moments we barely noticed have become the memories we treasure most. I've learned something while we've been apart, the message continues. Distance has a way of revealing what constant closeness sometimes hides. It taught me which moments were truly valuable. It reminded me that genuine connection isn't built on perfect days. It's built on consistent care. Those words carry quiet wisdom. Relationships are rarely transformed by one extraordinary event. More often, they're shaped by countless small choices. A thoughtful message. A patient conversation. A willingness to forgive. A habit of showing up even when life feels complicated. These are the things that slowly build trust. I don't expect either of us to be the same people we once were, the voice says. In fact, I hope we're not. I hope we've both grown. I hope we've both learned. I hope we've both discovered that love becomes stronger when humility is allowed to speak. Humility is often misunderstood. People think it means admitting defeat. In reality, it means valuing the relationship more than the need to win every disagreement. It means saying, "Help me understand your perspective." It means asking questions before making conclusions. It means believing that another person's heart is more complex than our first impression. The message grows softer. There were times when I heard your words but failed to hear your heart. Looking back now, I realize those are two very different things. That sentence lingers. Listening isn't simply waiting for our turn to speak. True listening means trying to understand what someone is feeling beneath the words they choose. Sometimes the loudest emotions are expressed in silence. Sometimes the deepest fears are hidden behind ordinary conversations. Sometimes people don't need solutions. They simply need to know they're not facing life's uncertainties alone. I wish I had understood that sooner, the message admits. But understanding arrived eventually, and I don't want that lesson to be wasted. Life has a remarkable way of teaching us through experience. The lessons rarely arrive when everything feels easy. They arrive during seasons of uncertainty. They arrive when plans change. They arrive when we finally slow down enough to notice what has always mattered. Perhaps you've experienced that yourself. Perhaps there was someone whose kindness you appreciated only after time had passed. Perhaps there was a conversation you replayed in your mind because you wished you had responded differently. Those reflections don't have to become regrets. They can become wisdom. The message continues with quiet confidence. I've stopped asking whether the past defines us. Instead, I've started asking whether we've learned enough to create something healthier than before. That's an important question. Because every new beginning carries the opportunity to make different choices. Not perfect choices. Better choices. Choices shaped by patience instead of impulse. By understanding instead of assumption. By gratitude instead of expectation. I don't want our story to be remembered only for the chapters where we struggled, the message says. I hope it's remembered for the moments when we chose courage over comfort, honesty over silence, and kindness over pride. There is something deeply hopeful about that thought. Every meaningful relationship contains difficult chapters. But difficult chapters don't automatically become the final chapter. Sometimes they become the turning point. Sometimes they become the reason two people learn how to appreciate each other more deeply than ever before. As the message nears its end, one final reflection remains. If our paths continue together, I promise to value the ordinary days as much as the extraordinary ones. Because I've learned that a peaceful conversation, shared laughter, and simple moments of understanding often become the greatest treasures of all. The room becomes quiet once more. Not with uncertainty. With reflection. Because the most meaningful messages rarely tell us exactly what to do. Instead, they invite us to think more deeply about the people we care about, the words we choose, and the opportunities we still have to lead with compassion. And perhaps that is where every lasting connection truly begins. The message has almost come to an end. Not because every question has been answered. Not because every wound has disappeared. But because there comes a moment when words have done all they can do, and the rest belongs to the choices we make. The person you love pauses one last time. I've said everything I carried in my heart for so long. Whether these words change anything or not, I'm grateful I finally found the courage to speak them. There is something deeply moving about that sentence. It reminds us that courage isn't measured by the outcome. It's measured by the willingness to be honest, even when the result is uncertain. I don't want to remember our story only through the moments when we struggled, the message continues. I want to remember the laughter that came so easily. The conversations that lasted until neither of us noticed the time. The quiet moments that didn't need perfect words because simply being together felt enough. Memories have a unique way of revealing what truly mattered. Years later, we rarely remember every disagreement. Instead, we remember the kindness that arrived when we needed it most. We remember the encouragement that changed a difficult day. We remember the feeling of being understood without having to explain every emotion. Perhaps that is the true measure of a meaningful relationship. Not perfection. Presence. Being there. Choosing each other in ordinary moments. Finding reasons to appreciate instead of reasons to compare. The voice grows softer. If life has taught me anything, it's that the people we value deserve to know they're valued while they're still part of our lives. Those words invite reflection. How often do we assume someone already knows how much they matter? How often do we postpone gratitude because tomorrow feels guaranteed? Yet tomorrow is always a hope, never a promise. That is why today matters. Today is where apologies can be offered. Today is where appreciation can be expressed. Today is where understanding can begin. The message continues with quiet confidence. I've stopped searching for perfect timing. Perfect timing kept me waiting. Honest timing finally helped me speak. There is wisdom in that. Life rarely arranges every circumstance exactly the way we imagine. Waiting forever for the perfect moment often means missing the meaningful one. Sometimes all we need is the courage to begin. One conversation. One sincere sentence. One moment of listening with an open heart. The person you love smiles gently before sharing one final thought. If our journey continues together, I hope we never stop learning from one another. I hope we celebrate small victories. I hope we forgive quickly. I hope we choose patience when life becomes complicated. I hope we remember that love isn't built in extraordinary moments alone. It's built every single day through respect, honesty, kindness, and trust. Those words remain long after the message ends. Because they speak about something larger than one relationship. They speak about the kind of person each of us hopes to become. Someone who listens before judging. Someone who values people over pride. Someone who understands that every meaningful connection deserves care. The screen grows quiet. No dramatic ending. No impossible promises. Only one final reflection. If someone in your life truly matters, don't assume they already know. Show them. Tell them. Listen to them. Appreciate the ordinary moments that often become life's greatest memories. Relationships are not defined by never facing challenges. They are strengthened by the willingness to face those challenges together with honesty, compassion, and hope. And perhaps that is the real message. Not, "I don't want to lose you," but rather, "I want us to become the kind of people who never stop choosing understanding, even when life becomes difficult." Thank you for spending these moments with this story. If it encouraged you to reflect on the importance of communication, forgiveness, and gratitude, consider sharing it with someone who may need these words today. And remember, sometimes the most meaningful message we can give another person is simply letting them know they are seen, heard, and deeply appreciated. The message ends here. But every new day offers another opportunity to write the next chapter with kindness, wisdom, and hope.